Among the countless raiders and pirates that plague the seas of the Old World, none are more fearsome and dreadful than the dark elf Black Arks. Though the Corsairs that crew them raid and plunder all across the world, it is the High Elves that make for their juiciest prey. The wealth the High Elves control, their value as slaves, and the sheer hatred the Dark Elves feel for them makes raids on the kingdoms of Ulthuan an inevitability. In the kingdom of Kothic, one such raid was making its way to the small village of Ceylathion. The raid, led by the sorceress Loshelna, was naught but a splinter of a much larger force, but for the inhabitants of the village, it was still a terrible threat. The local militia captain, Oclertac, assembled the guards. A veteran of Eotane, he had styled his militia after the Lothern sea guard, with spear, shield, and bow. The militia he assembled upon the outskirts of Ceylathion, alongside the few silver Helms that had heard of the threat and arrived to help, as well as the lone eagle claw bolt thrower they had at their disposal. Unfortunately for him, Loshelna was a cunning adversary and had already sent her shades ahead of her warband. As her forces assembled and prepared to march into the battle, the shades sprung their ambush, emerging from behind the High Elf forces, ready to capture or kill them all, and complete the raid on Ceylathion. Today's battle is a 500-point solo game of Warhammer Fantasy 6th edition Warbands, played between High Elves and Dark Elves. Unlike past games on this channel, there are no special rules in this scenario. Victory will be determined by victory points, and both sides have a bonus objective, though as this is a solo game, they could not remain hidden. The High Elves will be trying to kill Loshelna, while the Dark Elves are trying to capture the High Elven battle standard. Both sides will be taking turns alternating deploying their units and roll for the first turn. The Dark Elves end up rolling high for both deployment and first turn, and choose to have the High Elf player begin setting up first while they take the first turn. The High Elf army is being led today by Oclertac, the champion of a unit of 15 Lothern Sea Guard, represented by the blue dot. This unit is equipped with shields and has a standard bearer, who is represented by the yellow dot. In addition to the Sea Guard, there are 2 units of silver Helms. The first unit comprises of 4 models, equipped with heavy armor and shields, making them a truly formidable foe. The second unit has only 2 models and no equipment. The larger unit deploys beside the Sea Guard, while the smaller unit takes up a position far on the flank, where it can swing around to hit the Dark Elf forces on the side. Finally, positioned on a hill directly behind the Sea Guard, sits the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower. On the opposite side of the board, the Dark Elf army is being led by Loshelna, a level 2 sorceress who is using dark magic. She rolled for spells and got Chill Wind and Word of Pain. Chill Wind provides her with some weak offensive potential, which has the ability to shut down enemies shooting for a turn if it deals damage. Word of Pain is a spell that remains in effect when cast and drastically reduces the chances of the target unit to hit in melee or ranged combat. Accompanying her are 2 units of Corsairs, one of 12 models and another of 10 models. She has joined up with a unit of 10 models to provide some safety from the High Elven marksmanship. Standing behind them, screened from any arrows, is a unit of 6 Witch Elves. Finally, hidden at the back of the High Elf lines, tucked behind a building, is a unit of 5 Shades, waiting to pounce on the exposed rear of the High Elves. The game begins in the same way as most others, the bulk of the Dark Elf units marching forward to engage with their High Elven counterparts. Loshelna casts Chill Wind, putting all of her magical force behind it to ensure it succeeds, and hits the bolt thrower with it. The machine itself is too tough for such an attack to threaten it, but the crew are exposed, and one of them is killed by the spell. This would render the bolt thrower unable to attack the next turn. However, the Shades emerge from their hiding spot and open fire on the bolt thrower with their repeater crossbows and slay the remaining 2 crew members, leaving the war machine idle this game. On the High Elf turn, the Silver Helms surge forward into a pincer movement, marching up each side of the battlefield and wheeling to threaten the flank or rear of the enemy in the next turn. The Lothern Sea Guard remain in place, firing on the advancing Corsairs to no avail. In the second turn, the Dark Elves push further forward, hoping to engage with the Sea Guard in the next turn before the Silver Helms can pose too great a threat. Loshelna casts Word of Pain this turn upon the Sea Guard, greatly weakening them for the coming fight. They immediately come under fire from behind, as the shades move forward and pelt them with bolts. The volley is sizable, but the High Elven armor stands strong, and only a single sea guard falls. The Witch Elves, meanwhile, move forward and wheel to face the nearest unit of Silver Helms, daring them to charge and face their might. Both units of Silver Helms do so, pinning the crazed elves between their formations. 4 of the 6 Witch Elves are felled by the lances of the Silver Helms in their initial charge. Of the 2 remaining, one manages to catch a Silver Helm in the ankle, slipping her dagger between his armor and slicing him with the poisoned blade. The toxins work quickly, and even as the Witch Elves flee, he falls from his horse, dead. The Witch Elves do not flee far, however, as the Silver Helms give chase and easily run them down. While this exchange was occurring, the Sea Guard were not idle. They charged into the approaching Corsairs, and Oclertac personally engaged with and slew Loshelna. The Sorceress's body had barely collapsed, however, when he was struck down as well by a Corsair. Outside of the generals of the army, 1 man fell on each side. With the death of their leader and the superior numbers of the Sea Guard pressing in, the Corsairs flee and are caught and run down before they can escape. The third turn is short and sweet on both sides. The Corsairs reform their ranks to be ready for a fight in the next turn, and the Shades advance and shoot, but fail to do any damage. The High Elves do much the same, turning their Sea Guard to face the oncoming threat, and moving the Silver Helms into position to countercharge in the following turn. This proves unnecessary, as the Corsairs charge into the fight with the Sea Guard and manage to achieve no casualties despite their blinding hatred. High Elf spear units are notorious for being a meat grinder, however, and this one is no different. With 12 attacks being returned, the High Elves easily slay 2 of the Corsairs and force the rest to flee. They give chase once more, but are unable to catch them this turn. In their next turn, the Sea Guard charge after the Corsairs, and this time they are caught and killed. At this stage, victory for the Dark Elves is impossible. The best they can hope for is to close the margin of their defeat. The Shades move to try and avoid the Silver Helms, who position themselves to be ready for a charge and open fire on the smaller unit. They manage to kill both of them with ease, and for a second it looks as if they might escape. Unfortunately, they didn't quite make it far enough to escape the sight of the remaining 3 Silver Helms, who come charging after them. They strike down 3 Shades in the first turn of combat, and take no casualties in return. The Shades' morale holds strong, but on the Dark Elves' final turn, the Silver Helms maintain the initiative due to their previous victory, and while they failed to connect with their lances, their horses easily trample the 2 remaining Shades underhoof. As the dust settles on the battlefield, it's clear that today has been a resounding victory for the High Elves. Before we review the battle, if you enjoyed this battle report, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Every bit helps the channel grow and ensure there are plenty more Warbands battle reports to come. Next week will be the Battle of Leon Crossroads, a 300-point battle between Bretonnians and Beastmen. Normally, this is where I would review the tactics used in the battle. Today, however, I'd like to do something a little different and acknowledge the elephant in the room. The battle today wasn't particularly interesting. In comparison to the previous 3 battles, there wasn't a lot of drama to it. The High Elves landed a crushing blow on the second turn, and the rest of the battle was just a formality to see if the dice would turn things around. Obviously, they didn't, and the High Elves won a crushing victory. Before I wrote this script, I considered refighting the battle, taking what I'd learned from the mistakes I made on the Dark Elf side and trying to do better. As much as I love this game, playing with lots of different factions has left me with a lot of blind spots on tactics and how big a threat some things might pose. If I replayed it, I could line up the Dark Elves better, approach a bit slower with less fear of the Sea Guard, and more of an eye to keeping the flanks from being overly exposed. But ultimately, I decided not to do that. The goal behind this channel is to provide you with both entertainment and also an insight into the virtual wargaming hobby, what it's like playing on virtual tabletops, being able to use any army and play out most any scenario. A lot of the time, it's really fun, but sometimes games just go poorly. Sometimes you make a serious mistake and you get devastatingly punished for it. And that's okay, it's part of the hobby too, and I wanted people to see that. So going forward, I'll continue including the games like this, and I hope you'll appreciate them for what they are. Insights into the hobby with a little spice to add to the story, but also a demonstration of how games aren't perfect, and that's okay. and hopefully I'll learn a thing or two about how to play the game better, and we'll have less of these in the future. But real quick, since it would be cruel to say nothing about the tactics at all, Dark Elves would have been better served spreading their line out completely and not being scared of the archers killing the Witch Elves, and High Elves did basically everything perfectly, as always.